Hi, hello, my name is Hector Velasquez, and welcome to another episode of Hector's Shop. So, continuing in our Reel series, today we're going to be talking about uh, we're, we're going to be talking about reel diameter and how to use a reel diameter tape. Okay, this is a reel diameter tape, and it's made by SIP, and you can see that you can get their information if you want to get your own. You can also get these from JRM, and I'll tag them below in the description. But anyways, this is how we measure our reel. Now I'm going to show you how to read the reel diameter tape, and then I'm going to talk about why it's important to measure your reel. Now, I had a question about what did the colors mean. The colors don't mean anything. All the colors are there for is just to kind of help you break up those little tiny lines and kind of help you stay focused on them. A little bit of a visual thing. Other than that, that's all that means. Now let's talk about reel diameter. A John Deere, Jacobson Toro, or Greens mowers reel. They start out at approximately 5 inch, right? A 5 inch reel and a half inch is what you got. So at 4.5 inches, that reel is done. Okay. And we talked about this a little bit in the last video. And it's because you only got so much for adjustment. All right. So what I'd like to do, the first thing I do is I bring my reel, I throw it up on the Reel CU workstation. All right. And then I take the bed knife off. I take everything off that I need to get off right before I go to my grinder. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to do a pie reading tape. Or, no, I'm sorry, not a pie reading tape, but I want to do a reel diameter tape. So we have a magnet here, and that magnet is going to go on one of the reel blades. I usually work in between the last two spiders on the end of the reel. All right. So basically, you just stick it on one of the blades. It doesn't matter how far in and out, as long as it's out of the way, right? You want to hold it nice and tight. You want a nice tight, all right? These reel diameter tapes are made out of Mylar, and it's not going anywhere. So right away, we're going to see these big numbers. They represent 1 inch, and then it's going to be 0.100, and each of these increments represents 25 thousandths of an inch. And you're going to have 0.100. First one is 25, 50, 75, 0.2, 25, 50, 75.3, and so forth. Okay. This part right here is the vernier scale. So when we ramp this tape around, we want it to end up flush on the edge here where we're going to be lining up with the vernier scale. Okay. So we're going to hold that tight. We're going to ramp that around. And there we are right next to the vernier scale. So all of our numbers that we're going to be reading is going to be the 0 and above. Here's number 5, right? Now, number 5 is below the 0, so we're not reading that. So we know it's a 4 inch point. The next one is 8. So you can write 4 inches. The next line, 0.800. And then we have one, two, we have two lines that are above that 0. Now that line on the 0 is not exactly lining up. So we can either read this 4.850 inches. And if we want to get really technical, we can read the vernier scale. And essentially what you got to do is you got to work your way down the line and find the two lines that best match each other. In this case, it's going to be, I'm thinking that 5 thousandths of an inch lines up. So now we can read this as 4 inches, 0.855. All right, so that's 4 inches, 855. So then what I'll do is I'll write that down here, 4.855. Okay, now let's do the other side and line it up with the vernier scale. Wow, it's going to be really close. So again, we have 4.800, 2550, that's above the zero. And we're going to read the scale, and we're looking at about, I'm going to say, we got 56. So 4.856. That is actually really, really good, because what that's telling me now is that this reel is within 856. All right. So that side over here is 55, and this side is 56. So our reel is only 1/1000th of an inch coned, which is really, really good. Now, it's a brand new reel, right? It's 856. This is its first grind. So we want to make sure that we keep this reel nice and cylindrical. Okay. I kind of wish it was a little bit off so I could show you how we take care of addressing the cone. But either way, but this is how we read a pipe. Whoops. This is how we read a pipe tape. Okay. Now, why is it important to do a real diameter test? Well, here's the thing. This cutting unit is off a triplex, right? Now, you want to make sure that all your cutting units are within the same diameter. Okay. So if we have this cutting unit, and as we saw, we're at 855 or 856 on the big side, and we go to another cutting unit and it's reading, let's just say 800, right? That's like 55 thousandths of an inch difference between this cutting unit and the other cutting unit. Okay. We want to make sure that we keep these diameters together, because that's going to affect the real diameter, is going to affect how far that bed knife sits behind center distance. And if we got one reel that's more aggressive than the other one, you're going to get two distinct after cut appearances. Okay, so that's why, especially on a triplex and fairway mower, you want to keep track of your reel diameters. It's always a good practice that when you grab, let's say, a fairway mower, you want to measure all your reel diameters, figure out which one's the biggest one versus the smallest reel. And what you want to do is do your small reel first, grind it out, measure it again, and see where you end up. And you want to make sure that the rest of those reels are ending up pretty close to that small reel. Okay. That way you can kind of keep them all in the same neighborhood, and you're going to get a more consistent aftercut appearance between each cutting unit on that same fairway mower. The way I like to say it is like when you do brakes in your car, right? You just don't do one side, right? You got to do the whole axle, right? You got to do both sides with brand new brakes. Kind of like the same idea, and kind of help you understand that. Now, I hope this helps you understand how a real diameter tape works, and it it's really important, if at the very least, to know where your reel is at as far as in relationship when it's time to replace, right? Because another way that this is going to help you is you're going to be able to figure out how much reel you're using per season, right? Given your circumstances, if you grind a lot, or if you're top dressing a lot, so you're grinding a lot, you're keeping track of your reel. How that's going to help you then is you can say, okay, if this trend continues, we should be able to get X amount of years out of this reel before it's time to replace. And then that's going to help you budget for cutting units if you do replace them, if you own your own units, right? And it's not a lease package. At that point, you ain't going to replace no reels with a lease package, right? But if you own your traction units, you want to be able to forecast when it's time to replace